Hi guys, welcome back on this glorious sunny Thursday. Hope you're all keeping well. A chance for us to discuss a special, really, to some extent. We're going to discuss the current state of the Premier League. I've been thinking throughout the whole of this season, man, this season is absolutely awful. And I took a step back and thought, am I saying that purely because as a Liverpool fan, it's been one of our worst ever. I mean, I'm not just talking the Premier League era. I'm talking from sort of 1980 all the way up to now. I mean, for me, it's the worst. For me, it's because it's the whole season. And Roy Hodgson was sort of 6 months, but this one is just absolutely horrible. And I think the reality of this season from a Liverpool perspective is that you've gone from the high bar of winning the league to where we're at now, which has frankly been the whole season just been an absolute disaster from start to finish. There's very few decent performances to find throughout the season. So many, almost the entire squad, bar one or two, are operating at 20% or 30% of their ability, and just is trying to find reasons for that, which we've obviously gone through other videos. But I think most people understand the squad deficiencies. Most people understand the management deficiencies. Most people understand, a couple of the mitigating factors there. There's obviously variances as to what percentage people put on those mitigating factors. And I suppose it depends where you come from as to those mitigating factors and really whether they're an excuse for such a remarkable drop off, from where we're at. My viewpoint is what makes it one of the worst seasons ever for Liverpool, if not the worst. For me, it's the worst season I've seen in 40 years of me supporting Liverpool, purely for the fact that yes, we've had bad seasons before, but we were never title winners and we never dropped from such a perch and then reinvested and became even worse. It's not a case of becoming worse. We became horrendous. I think that's what sometimes people just don't seem to think. They think, oh well, but you won the title last year. It's like, yeah, exactly. When you've dropped off from being a title winner last season and the standard of that to then fall to the levels that we've been this year, yeah, that's what people should understand. It's almost like, well, you won it last year. That means there's an excuse for you to be horrendous this year. I mean, I think while you can't tell me that the changes that we made and 90% of them were through choice in the summer. Outside of obviously the tragedy of Jota and Trent, everything else is done through choice. And so, look, 90% of them, are decisions made by us, which means that the vast majority of, our performances this year are self-inflicted, ultimately. And then that's just the reality, isn't it? And I think I wanted to really take a step back and say, okay, well, we understand where Liverpool's problems are at and how horrendous this season has been. And then I've been looking around at other teams, and what I think, obviously, my focus has been on Chelsea for a long time in terms of the top five. Well, okay, well, I mean, Chelsea have had an horrific season as well. You're like, okay, well, who's been worse, us or Chelsea? I mean, obviously us because we've fallen off from being title winners. But then from their perspective, they've sacked what, two managers. They've lost a fortune in money. They're no further forward than what they were the previous season. I mean, I would still say we've had a far, far worse season. The irony of all ironies is we haven't sacked anybody. They've sacked two. And we're just about an inch ahead of them in terms of where we're at this season. I mean, look, it's not a fight you really want to care about, let's be honest. And, we're in no position to celebrate what we've done this season. It's been a disaster. So I think this is one where we sheepishly sit in the corner and just sort of scutter our way through to the end of the season because, frankly, there ain't nothing to celebrate from this season's performance for any part of Liverpool as a club. Everything we did in the summer or whatever we were trying to do in the summer hasn't worked. Everything the managers tried to do this year hasn't worked, and everything the players wanted to do this year hasn't worked. it's been horrendous. Because look, let's be pull no punches. It's been, for a big club, this has been the worst title defense ever. And so just is what it is. I mean, like Chelsea, horrific season. So I wanted to sort of look at, okay, well, what has happened to the Premier League? Because as I say, as a fan, you can become so immersed in your own team, you almost don't bother sort of taking into account what's happening around you. And then you go, okay, yep, Chelsea have had not equal, but Chelsea are probably number two. But obviously as a Liverpool fan, I put us at having the worst season out of everybody. Like, okay, yeah, Chelsea are right up there. They're having a horrendous season, lost our truckload of money. Got problems with FFP, no further forwards, sacked two managers, and facing potential reality of not being in the Champions League next year and the money that they'll lose from that. Okay, yeah, okay, you got Liverpool and Chelsea having absolute disasters this season. What else is going on? Oh yeah. Man United were having a disastrous season until sort of mid-January, and then they sacked their manager and obviously brought Carrick on board. So they're not having a look. Carrick has sort of semi-turned that ship around. Let's be honest, it ain't a great season. If Man United finish in the top four, this is Man United we're talking about, for love of Jesus. Just because all the seasons that have been when they haven't finished in the top four are basically abject. For Liverpool and Man United not to be in the Champions League positions makes it an horrific season. That's the standards. Like the standards don't change just because you've had a few years. It's like, hold on, this is Man United we're talking about. Man United not being in the Champions League positions makes any season an horrendous season for them, as it would be for Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City. It's no different on that side. And so, yeah, they may well get into the top four. They've picked up from mid-January onwards, but let's be honest, it's not been a great season for them. They had to sack the manager in mid-January, and they're in a position where that's the only reason they're ahead of Liverpool is because Liverpool have been absolutely abject. Also, all the wheels have fallen off Liverpool's car this year. Not much else could have gone wrong that hasn't gone wrong in terms of Liverpool this year. Chelsea are in the same boat. That's two of the top five have been absolutely, top six as it were. Two of the top six have been absolutely woeful. So it's like it's not saying a great deal, but it's not really saying a great deal. Man United haven't had to do much to get. Let's be honest. When you look at how many points Liverpool are, but ahead of the sort of chasing pack down to about 11th, that highlights just how bad Liverpool and Chelsea have been. So yeah, Man United. No, they've not had a great season either. Okay, who else? Spurs. Let's go to Spurs. Spurs are good. No, Spurs are on the Spurs are on the brink of relegation. So officially, they're having one of their worst seasons ever. Okay, I don't think we need to really expand too much on that one. God knows, I've lost count how many managers they've gone through. I think off the top of my head, at least two, could be three, could be two. I know definitely two, could be three on that front. So you're looking at, okay, Liverpool, yep, horrendous, horrific, disaster. Chelsea, horrendous, horrific, disaster. Spurs, horrendous, horrific disaster. Okay, we're doing well here so far. We're on to three. Man United are just where they're at, essentially. Well, they're heading on that ship and up until mid-January. And I don't think where they're at now is any real great shakes, given the fact that they're really there because two teams from the normal top five are just having a complete and utter disaster of a season. Where else are we looking at for the league? Newcastle, bang average season, haven't dominated really anything all season long. Really, at no point have they really threatened the top 4 or 5. No point really done that much at all. So I'd say they're having an average season, not really putting any great performances of any real note. Who else? West Ham, they're having a disastrous season. What other teams? Bournemouth, okay. I mean, in fairness to Bournemouth, considering the fact they lost, was it Houston? I think it's Houston that went from Bournemouth. And, they've lost so many players in recent times that ultimately, what else? I think they're having they're having a good season considering they've lost so much talent. in recent years. I don't think they're doing phenomenal, but I think that they're doing well. They're staying in the division, and and they're in that period where they're just trying to replenish the talent, aren't they? A bit like Brentford. I think Brentford having a good season. Also lost a lot of talent in recent months, in the last 18 months, and so they're in a similar position to Bournemouth, really, considering how much talent they have lost in recent times. A bit like Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, and Brentford are having, look, not spectacular seasons, but let's be honest, you have to say good seasons, considering the caveat of that they've lost a lot of talent in the last 18 months, and it's hard for them to really be doing anything more, considering the nature of the beast of what it is. They have to sell some of the talent because they want to go on to bigger clubs, either in the Premier League or abroad. And then it's that cycle of replenishing that talent, isn't it, really? I think Brighton have been in great form since the turn of the year. I don't think they've been that amazing all year long, but I think they're pushing the top five. I say I don't. This is the worst race for top. The very fact we have to have five places, as a Liverpool fan, we're clinging to it this year, but the very fact there is five places for the Champions League is not exactly a great indictment for anything. You really shouldn't have five places going to the Champions League. It's silly. But we'll take it this year as a Liverpool fan because it's just been the season from hell. But like you can't. So I think they've done really, really well since sort of Christmas. So I mean, I've come quite a fair amount of teams. Man City have only really picked up since they brought Gay and Semenya in sort of mid-January. Um, what are my thoughts on Man City? I think they sort of plodded along up until January. I don't think they did anything special. Didn't really look any great shakes. They, for a long time, didn't look like they were necessarily going to finish sort of second. I think the Semenya and Gay really did solidify them, and I think other younger players came through. Weirdly, they've been really. I mean, almost when they got knocked out of the Champions League, they put the foot to the pedal. I think the big moment for them is the Carabao Cup win. They completely and utterly obliterated Arsenal in that game and really dominated it from start to finish. And I think they got a lot of confidence from that. And from that moment onwards, outside of the Champions League, they've really been in pretty good form. Look, this is nowhere near peak Man City. They don't have the same caliber of players. They still have Haaland. You don't have De Bruyne. You don't have peak Bernardo Silva. You don't have Gundogan. You haven't got a peak Foden at the moment. You haven't got a David Silva. You haven't got a peak. The defense is good, but it's not as good as what it was. So you don't really have a peak Rodri. Rodri's still sort of finding his way back on that front. So I think it's like I think I would best put they're like a B plus City compared to their old self. But I think that B plus City is going to be more than enough to win this league. And I think Arsenal have, look, let's be honest, they've chucked it in the last sort of. It's almost like competing on so many competitions. It's just zapped everything. I know they've had some injuries and stuff, but Arsenal, all season have hardly set the world alight. They've just been methodical and you could say clinical and like a surgeon in terms of producing results. But they've hardly ripped the Premier League up in terms of performances. They've just been, like you say, surgical in terms of getting wins. And then as I say, the deficiencies that they have with the attack, they have a great defense. We all know that. Great work ethic and a good midfield with obviously Rice and Odegaard there, but they're not exactly phenomenal when it comes to attack. Look, if City win, they win. I don't think they'll be the greatest Premier League champions because they've really only turned up since sort of February onwards. And I think they're pretty, for Man City standards, pretty bang average up until that point. I think Arsenal have been pretty awful from almost February onwards now. That's covering those. So we've covered a fair proportion of the teams, in terms of this year. I don't think Forest have been any good this year. I don't think, ironically, Forest have been a lot better in the Europa League than they have been in the, they've just too many draws. I think, like you said, the problem with Forest is that it's the goals. It's the goals really. Last year when they were flying, it was a lot from Chris Wood, and Gibbs White, and didn't they have Anthony? Oh, is it Langer, the one who used to be at Man United that's now at Newcastle? I think they're missing him as well. So I think between Wood's drop off and he's had injuries, I think Gibbs White drop off. I think the player that used to be at Chelsea that's with them now hasn't been as good. Um, yeah, and Langer going to Newcastle. He hasn't done that. Anthony Langer hasn't done that great. I think Elliot Anderson's obviously, most people know how well he's been. Yeah, my view of this year would say, I think, to be honest, it's probably been the worst Premier League season I can actually remember for quality, probably since the Premier League started. Yeah, I mean, I generally would say that. I would say from start to finish, this is the worst Premier League I've ever seen since the Premier League came in. And in 40 years, which includes the first division, I generally, but I'm going to just put it in the Premier League era for people that don't know, remember much of the sort of 1980s in the first division. I think this is flat out the worst Premier League there's ever been. I'm looking around, and you're looking at superstars. Liverpool, Mo Salah, been awful all season. But it's just an age thing with Mo Salah, combination with the team falling apart. Trent not supplying him, and the manager having a nightmare and everything else. But ultimately, superstar of Liverpool's Mo Salah has had a disaster of the season, worst season since he's ever been there. Drop off by about 95% in terms of his performance. Diaz got sold. Nobody else replaced Diaz. Verts has had a nightmare. Isak's been injured, and nobody else outside of some spectacular goals from Szoboszlai has done anything. Okay, that's Liverpool summed up pretty much for the season. What else are you looking at, really? Everton have been sort of workmanlike, best way to put it. I think Grealish has played well when he was fit. Probably the highlight of Everton really for this season. I think they've had a solid enough season in a new ground. Always a tough one when you move into a new ground. I don't think they've done anything spectacular. Just a sort of solid enough season with a few moments from Grealish when he was fit. Outside of that, Arsenal, Saka, nothing. Pretty much all season. Gorkrez, not really much. Didn't think he was phenomenal coming in. He hasn't really done that much. Jesus has sort of been in and out of injuries. I think Declan Rice has played, without doubt, Declan Rice is their player of the year. And then probably either Gabriel or Saliba in defence. Pretty much, yeah. I don't think Odegaard's played that great. I mean, the Odegaard that went was at Real Madrid when he was young, I expected a lot more. I expected a lot more quality and a lot more creativity, a lot more goals. Maybe I'm just expecting more from Odegaard than it's ever going to happen at this point, or whether it can happen in that system of the team. I don't know. Yeah, not really anything phenomenal coming out. I mean, Martinelli is just Martinelli. Nothing phenomenal, really. Solid enough winger. At times I like Madueke, but then he just disappears for months without doing much in terms of end product. Chelsea, Cole Palmer, nowhere near enough. We expect far more. I'm not talking from an England fan. I'm just saying when you know of the qualities that Cole Palmer has, nowhere near enough from Cole Palmer this year for them. I think João Pedro's played really well. I think Esteval plays well in moments, but look, he's incredibly young. He's got a lot of talent. He plays well in moments. I think Enzo Fernandez has been bang average. I think Casado is what Casado is. I think Casado is probably one of the world's greatest defensive midfielders. He can score the odd long-range goal. I think he's done well. It's pretty much Chelsea summed up, isn't it, really, on that front? Man United, I mean, I think Mbeumo's done well. Nothing phenomenal, but I think he's done well. Cunha's done well. I think they were good, solid Premier League buys, and they proved to be that, which has sort of got them where they're at now. think Bruno's done. I think Bruno's done well. I don't think he's been phenomenal, but I think he's done well. Um, yeah, and Sesko, he's all right. Yeah, it's nothing crazy. He's all right. Like I think that at the end of the day, like I compare these to world-class players that used to be at Man United, world-class strikers at Man United. And none of these are Ruud van Nistelrooy's or Robin van Persie's or Wayne Rooney's or Ronaldo's or Tevez's or Van Persie's or Sheringham's, or Mark Hughes's or the whole sort of list. None of these are like or Eric Cantona's of the world, Giggs's of the world. And I know I can't live in the past, so I just reeled off the last 20 years. Like, you got to be honest. I mean, Sesko and Bermo and Cunha, I don't mind in Bermo and Cunha. And they're solid enough to keep Man United in a top four position. Are they good enough to really win him a league? Maybe if they got a real superstar striker. Maybe. Not sure. Who knows? I mean, on this season's been pretty awful. If Man City go and win, I think it'll be a B plus City. Look at City for this year. Turkey's played sort of really well since probably January onwards. I think Semenya's been superb. I loved Semenya before, and I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I've been shouting for Semenya since last summer. But heaven forbid we would ever get somebody that's as close to a version of Mane, even though we're too busy trying to go down the Dutch route that's never worked in the Premier League. Albeit we won last season with a hybrid version of really Klopp's team, Klopp's squad, Klopp's tactics, mixed with a couple of tweaks from Slot, and now we're doing the full-on Dutch sort of disaster route, which is basically what we're doing now. And no Dutch route's ever worked, in the Premier League. Just hasn't. Ten Hag, Van Gaal, Koeman, Hullet, and we're now going down the same route. I don't know what the obsession is with Dutch. Look, I grew up on like loving the '88, Dutch team with Rijkaard, Hullet, Van Basten, Edgar Davids and Seedorf, and look, I get it, and Kluivert and Overmars. Look, Van Persie. I love Holland players in terms of their, I love Jesus. I like Dirk Kuyt had heart like a goddamn lion for Liverpool. If I saw him down the high street now, I'd give him a giant bear hug. That's how much I appreciate what he did for us, considering he was a striker shoved out on the right wing. But let's be honest. And look, for years when Rafa van der Vaart was at, when Rafa van der Vaart was at Ajax before he came to, I think, did he go to Real Madrid after that, or did he come to Spurs after that? I can't remember which, or was it Spurs to Real Madrid? When he was at Ajax, I thought he was the next greatest thing, the greatest talent in the world. And unfortunately, I think he had some health problems as well. But yeah, I mean, I thought Van der Vaart was phenomenal. I remember us playing him in, I think it was a pre-season friendly or a European game. He just ripped us apart. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't knock Dutch talent. It's more a question of just don't like the Dutch style in the Premier League. Dutch players can work in the Premier League. God, mate, yeah, of course they can. They just need to be in a team that's more suited to playing a Premier League style, and then just put in certain positions. I don't think playing the whole Dutch system can function in the Premier League. It just doesn't work. It's been proven it doesn't work. So I don't know what we're trying to do. Yeah, you look at Man City. I think Semenya's been great, since he signed for them. He's probably been one of the best players of this season overall, far ahead of his XG. I don't think anybody can be surprised by Semenya's performances. I mean, it was great last season. Anyone surprised by Semenya? I'm not. It's a pretty obvious buy for City. Let's be honest. Liverpool should have gone after him. I don't know why they didn't. The honest answer is that I have no idea why we didn't buy him last summer. People so look, we had to replace Diaz and we decided not to. Or in our infinite wisdom, thought Verts was going to replace everybody, it seems, on that front. Or they thought whatever concoction of attack we were trying to put together with Verts, Isak and Ekateke, it was obviously meant to be better than the version that won us a league. And obviously it hasn't worked out that way. People say, well, they haven't played together. I get it. But unfortunately, Liverpool have got to find a way to get the real verts playing in this league. And so far we haven't. And so whilst we can lambast, it's obviously been unlucky with Isak when he's been fit. I love Isak, but we've got to find a system that works with Verts and Isak and Ekateke, and I don't know what that looks like. All I know is Verts has got to be really played as a 10 to get him out of the kerfuffle and really in the midfield. So really reverting back to Man City, yeah, Haaland's been Haaland, world-class striker putting up the numbers. I don't think he's been phenomenal though. I think he's just done what he's needed to do. But that's maybe doing him a disservice. But I don't think he's been at his best by any means this season. As I say, Cherky's been great since January. Semenya's been great. Rodri's found almost as the season's gone on, has got better and better. This is not peak Rodri by any means. This is maybe 60% Rodri at the moment. Sort of really where you're at. Phil Foden's been pretty much a non-event for the season. I don't know what's going on with Phil Foden. One of the most talented players in the world. And answers on a postcard with what's happening with Phil Foden at the moment. Yeah, so we've gone through Arsenal, we've gone through City, we've gone through Man United, we've gone through Liverpool, we've gone through Chelsea. Look at Newcastle. I think Anthony Gordon's had a pretty good year. I don't think it's been phenomenal. It's a pretty good year. Gameres, okay. Tonali, okay. I think, was it Voldemida? Started off well, then sort of tailed off. Sort of it, really. And Langer really hasn't done what he did at Forest. Sort of reverted back to the Man United version of Langer. Yeah. Newcastle are where Newcastle are. Sort of sums up the players. They've got some very talented players that people would buy. I don't doubt people would buy Tonali, Gameres, Gordon, Voltamede and Bayern Munich wanted, and Langer people would probably still buy. There's a lot of people that would buy players off Newcastle. I don't doubt that. I just don't think they necessarily really had that many games where they played that well. Underperforming, I would say, with Newcastle. You look at the streak that Brighton have been on, and you look at it and go, yeah, the talent Newcastle have, surely Newcastle should be sort of really sitting where Brighton are at the moment. To some extent, Brighton are knocking on the door trying to get into the top 5. Why aren't Newcastle really knocking the door to get in the top 5? Great to hear your sort of thoughts on that one, guys. Going on, I think Bournemouth, as I say, gone through Bournemouth, Brighton, Brentford, Spurs. Look, Spurs have had. Look, you have to be honest with Spurs. They've been obliterated with injuries. They've had players out for pretty much the entire season. Kulusevski's been out since last year. He's their best player. Richarlison, who Richarlison is. He'll probably have a good World Cup. Occasionally he turns up for Spurs. Don't say he does put a shift in for Spurs. His output is just very, very sporadic. He's just a weird player, Richarlison. Has ability, but just doesn't show it anywhere near it. His output just isn't anywhere near enough. Yet he'll probably go and do well for Brazil. Yeah, go figure. It's a bit like Vinicius Jr. can't hit a barn door, for Brazil. Plays all Vinicius Jr. is awful, but fantasy he's had a pretty woeful season for Real Madrid. But Vinicius Jr. is pretty bang average for Brazil. Not this season, but can be great at times. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as hype, but can be great at times for Real Madrid. Richarlison but far better for Brazil than he ever is for Spurs, but at times, in fleeting moments, can produce wonder goals. Like say, Kulusevski's been out, Kundus has been out, Madison's been out. Ultimately, it's like you can only do so much when you don't spend vast amounts of money. They had Slanky out forever, and he struggled to really find form since he's come back. They just had long-term injury after long-term injury after long-term, all in their attack and midfield area, essentially. It's just kept them out for the vast majority of almost the entire season. And if you don't spend huge sums of money, if you imagine if you took Rodgers, Watkins, and maybe a couple of other players out of Villa, in terms of where they would be at, and maybe they would struggle as well. And it is the reality of those, where certain teams are at. If they don't have, I mean, Liverpool don't have a huge squad, and look where we've been at with Isak been out. We really haven't been hit by injuries in the attacking area outside of Isak. Okay, yeah, Ekiteke in recent times. But we've just been hit by non-performance. You put another 10 goals on for Verts, another 10 goals on for Salah, Liverpool will probably be sitting in second. And we've been awful. Absolutely abject awful. Yeah. So I look at the season's Premier like, where's the next superstars? And now Arsenal got a youngster. I know you got Esteval at Chelsea, and I know you got Rio at Liverpool. And you're like, yeah, but I mean, I'm not saying they won't go on to be a superstar, but I'm talking a real where where are the superstars? Man United don't have one. I mean, Bruno Fernandes, God rest his soul, and I like, obviously Liverpool fan don't like Man United, but let's be honest, nobody considers Bruno Fernandes as a world global superstar. He's, he's okay-ish for Portugal. It does okay for, I'm not saying he's not a good player. He is a good player, but he's not. Doesn't put up trees for Portugal. And yeah, I don't really think anything of Fernandes. I think he's a good player at times, can do great things. I would never class him as a great player. Hence why nobody like Real Madrid have ever tried to really try and get him. It's just the reality, isn't it, really? If everybody else thought he was as good a player as some people think, then why hasn't other people tried to raid him? Truth, isn't it, really? Yeah, just a very bizarre year. And I was watching a really good video. And credit to the Anfield Wrap. So give maximum credit to those guys on this. And I think it was at Neil when they were running through the statistics in terms of the wide player outputs, and just where I think Josh, the analytics person, was on that. They were running through, the sheer drop off of, all the creative players, which is obviously the wingers for a lot of teams. And almost every single winger is down this year. And people go, oh, it's down to the star. No, it's not. You can't tell me the change in the star in the Premier League is the reason why. So let's look at Phil Foden. Any reason answer on a postcard what's happened to Foden? I don't know. Saka, what's happened to Saka? I don't know. What's happened to Mo Salah? We do know it's age, but equally. So you're taking Foden, Saka. You could even argue that the Belgian player who plays on the wing for Man City, he's okay at times. I mean, he's got a lot of talent, but doesn't always have the output. But Foden's underperformed by about 90%. Salah's underperformed by 90%. Saka's underperformed by 90%. Spurs have been without all of their creative talent for the vast majority of the season. Villa have really been carried by Rodgers. And so I think it's fair to say that Rodgers has probably overperformed his XG. Semenya's been superb. I mean, I would say outside of Rodgers and Semenya for this season, who are the highlights for this season? I mean, I think you're looking at Rice. I mean, if Arsenal won the league, Rice would probably get Player of the Year. I mean, you're looking at Rice, Rodgers, Semenya. I can't think of anyone else. Honestly, this season has just been woeful. Not to be downbeat, I think, like if you go and buy a pair of Nike trainers, you're obviously expected to perform. Other brands are available. It's not an advert, by the way. But if you go and buy a pair of Nike trainers, you expect it to be a certain aesthetic, a certain performance for the amount of money that you invest. Fair dues, isn't it? But the amount of money that sports fans and then football fans have invested in the Premier League, all the tickets, the food, the travel, your Sky Sports and all these different things, all these subscriptions that you're paying for, and you look at what you've been given as a product for this year has been absolutely atrocious. I know people give it from a marketing perspective, and obviously I do marketing for a living. We got a close title race, and we got a close top 5 race, and we got a close relegation race, and that's all you can ask for. It's like, no, no. I mean, you have got those elements, but hold on, you've got those elements because at the top end, Arsenal have capitulated. City have been bang average until mid-January and have just basically had a little bit of a burst of form and found and probably going to go and win the league. It's like, yeah, but I mean, like, it's hardly an exciting title race because one's capitulated, one's only had a very short period of good form, and even City aren't exactly ripping the world up in terms of entertainment. Arsenal barely done anything for about 4 months. And then you look at the bottom end of the table, it's like, well, what's exciting about the bottom end apart from the fact that, a lot of fans think it's hilarious, that Spurs are struggling. The only real sort of interest in that is just I don't want to say it in a nasty way, but is a bit of a nasty sort of way where people would find it funny if Spurs went down just as a big club, spent a fortune on, the stadium going down, but like there's no real entertainment it's a weird sort of entertainment to that, but yeah, right. But essentially you've just got West Ham, Forest, and Spurs, for who may go down. But I mean, it's not a quality thing. It's not a quality thing. It's not a sort of. I mean, it's not. How do I put it? The entertainment comes in many forms, doesn't it? You can have entertainment because something is just phenomenally exciting because of the quality, or you can have entertainment because it's dramatic, or you can have entertainment because it's just weird. And I think the relegation one is one of those more like sort of weird, dramatic elements. I mean, it is drama. I mean, I suppose that's one way you could put it. Is the relegation sort of battle this year is drama because it would be big drama. It'd be big news if Spurs went down. But you're not really watching it from any quality perspective. And the top 5, it's just the best of a bad bunch. It's not right. It's a race of who can fall over who can crawl over the line with one leg. There's basically what the top 5 races is. Like, race for the top 5, as if it's been a quality race. Villa fell apart for a while, but because Liverpool and Chelsea were awful, stayed ahead of them. They've got a bit of form back now, but Man United haven't exactly been great in the last sort of 3 or 4 games. Liverpool haven't been great, and they somehow find the ways, in the position that they're in. Yeah, honestly, I say, not a negative video. It's a video that's, I mean, it's negative. It's generally not. It's just one that say, wow, 25, 26 will go down for me without doubt the worst Premier League season ever. Quality has been a flat out. I would go 10%. My expectations are what I would expect for quality. And maybe in a world where there's less global superstars because the ones that came before have all retired. We're in a world now where you're looking like, who are the superstars? I've done a video, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that in the next few months when I put it out. Who are the global superstars? It's true, isn't it? I mean, Liverpool gone through a spell where you look at it now, once Mo retires, who is the next global superstar? I mean, is a great Premier League striker, but he's not at that level. And don't get me wrong, Mo wasn't a global superstar when he joined Liverpool and he made himself one. And so he's like, Liverpool spent their entire sort of history making stars. And so, hopefully he's for us becomes a global superstar. Verts has all the talent in the world to be one. But at the moment, the irony of ironies, we'll probably see it for Germany in the World Cup. And for him, I hope so, because he has an amazing amount of talent, and I was incredibly excited for him to join Liverpool. So let's hope he does have a great World Cup, because I don't believe all of it is his fault for this season's performance. It is a 10% version of the Verts that he can be. It's our job to get that best version out, for us. But it'd be great to hear your thoughts, guys. Leave some thoughts in the comments. Do feel free to like, subscribe, all that jazz, just for you so you can see the next video. A bizarre year, but I do think, is this season a season that's an anomaly, or is it a trend? So, I mean, it's definitely food for thought because I look at the landscape of football and I just wonder hmm, where are the stars? Where is the quality? People say, oh, the style of football has changed, but has it changed because there's just a real dearth of well-beaten? It's not. We've got a lot of top managers. Have we coached flair out of football? Have we coached skill out of football to such an extent that everyone has tried to become a version of Tiki Taka Barca, which is wonderful. But they also had one of the world's greatest players at the end of it. For a long, the thing that gets lost with Barcelona, and it's probably not lost, but like Iniesta, phenomenal, but also had an end product. Xavi, phenomenal, also had an end product. But they equally had one of the world's best ever in terms of skill and output in Messi. Before that, they had Ronaldinho, one of the world's best. They also had people like Samuel Eto'o, one of the world's best. Thierry Henry, one of the world's best. Pedro was phenomenal, for themselves. Before that, they had Romario. So they had a whole conveyor belt of endless amounts of talent. That was at the end, that the sort of spearhead in terms of creativity, etc., for them. And I think sometimes it does get a little bit lost. And obviously, look, after that, they had Suarez, Messi, and Neymar, didn't they, for a period, as well. And so I do think that there is talent in the world. You only have to watch Bayern Munich. Oh, they got Elise, but they seem to have a complete. It's a weird one between Man City and Bayern Munich. It's almost like they have all the world's creative players, and nobody else seems to have anything. I mean, Real Madrid have Mbappe. I mean, I like the Turkish Messi, in fairness to him. It's good to see sort of his performance in that game with Real Madrid. Bayern Munich was incredibly entertaining. And so that was quite a refreshing game, really, in what feels like a season of, whilst there has been games of incredible amount of goals, not all of its quality. Yes, sometimes you can get games that have got loads of goals because, let's be honest, because the game's pretty average in terms of defending. You still need to have ability to score a goal. I get that, but the Bayern Munich Real Madrid game was just one that just had a ridiculous amount of quality. And look, but as I say, Bayern Munich just seemed to have a complete about 4 or 5 amazing wingers. Gnabry, great player. Elise, great player. Musiala's just literally come back, great player. They just got a conveyor belt of great players. And obviously Diaz. Yeah, I mean, I think the weird part of Liverpool letting Diaz go is you look back and you go, wow, we let Diaz go in a world where there's not that many great wingers. And don't get me wrong, we didn't just let him go and not bring anybody in. But we didn't replace him in terms of a winger. We brought Verts in. And so, look, if you just sold him and bought nobody, look, we let Suarez go and brought next to nobody in to replace him. And so it could be as bad as that. I think it looks worse for us because if Verts was tearing the Premier League up, we'd sit here and probably, whilst we would miss Diaz, you wouldn't miss him as much. When you see Diaz, whilst I get the Bundesliga is easier, but when you see Diaz doing what he's done and we willingly let him go, and then it's compounded by the fact that Mo Salah is basically pretty much he's retiring from Liverpool into whatever he does after he does. But when it's compounded by Salah's complete drop off with an age system, etc. And then it's compounded even more by Verts really only operating at 10%. You're like, oh my God, didn't want Diaz to go. And then not only has everything we brought in really not even sort of covered any of that, we've then had Salah completely underperform, and then because of that, it's been like the worst case scenario. Diaz down, Salah down, for about 30 goals down. Look, if you're 30 odd goals down the season, then invariably you're going to end up where Liverpool been. And whilst Liverpool can't defend for toffee half the time, in the midfield has got no legs. Basically, our midfield walks around like at the speed of a tortoise. We're probably one of the slowest teams in the Premier League. We play at the speed of a Dutch style football. We do. But the thing is, if you're going to play at that ponderous speed, then you have to have phenomenal players ahead of you. And was I mean, you see the methodology of doing what getting the ball, picking it up like Messi to, but he isn't Messi. I love Verts, but he ain't Messi. Nobody is, and I don't believe you can play that sort of slow, ponderous style in the Premier League because people just sit back. Vast majority of teams are quite more than happy to sit back against Liverpool, knowing full well, Liverpool's job is to win the title. So it's always the onus is always going to be on Liverpool to actually take the game to them. I think sometimes it gets lost on slot that fact. It's like you do realise you're managing Liverpool, and the onus is on us to win the league. It's not on the 17 of the other or 15 of the other teams to really attack, to come forward. It's like their job is just to sit back and hit us on the break. Why wouldn't you do that? It's not their job to make our life easier. It's our job to, when we're spending millions upon millions and millions and millions and millions, it's our job to be able to, my only thing when it comes to Liverpool is I just wish Slot would find more solutions and less moaning. It's like you're just confirming what we already know. Doesn't make you a scientist. You're coming out in the press conference and confirming what we already know. Your job, you're being paid to find solutions, not to just tell us what we know or make excuses. We have a small squad. Well, that's technically part of your fault. You accepted it by being the manager, and it's the people above's fault, not the fans' fault. We know we have a small squad. We've been saying for years we need to have a bigger squad. For some people, they're obsessed with the pathway as if by having quality players, a quality player won't find their way through. It's remarkable, isn't it, how Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, Steven Gerrard, Trent Alexander-Arnold all found their way, Jamie Carragher, all found their way through. Yeah, strange, isn't it, really? As if there's a magical pathway. It's like, what are you talking about? If you're good enough, you'll get in your chances and opportunities. If you're having to have a pathway that's so wide open that you have to have a small squad, then that player isn't good enough. That's my general viewpoint. This isn't you work your way into the team to then become an okay Premier League player. We're not Brighton and Bournemouth in terms of really sort of bringing youth in to then build them up over 2 seasons for them to be then sold on. We haven't got that time frame. We're in the business of winning now. Like Man United is no different. Man United's in the business of winning now. And all of the big clubs, we're in the business of winning now. This isn't you spend 6 years to then. If you asked a football fan if you were guaranteed a title in 7 years' time, would you accept 6 years of building? No, no. It's an interesting one. If you asked Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea fan, if you were guaranteed to win the league in 7 years' time, would you accept 6 years of nothing and just building? I wouldn't, because I don't believe that's a good enough standard. Your standard should be you should be aiming to win every year. And people go, oh, yeah, that's entitled, it's greedy. It's not. It's just a standard. If you buy a high quality product, I don't expect one jacket, one pair of shoes every 7 times I buy it for it to be at the standard I expect. I find it's sometimes it can be a really weird scenario. Like Real Madrid and Barcelona are expected to be winning Champions Leagues and league titles all the time. Yeah, all right, the league's easy. I get it. But the standard is the standard. Doesn't change, doesn't it, guys? So it'd be great to hear your thoughts. So, really discussing the state of the Premier League this year. Is this season? I'll leave it on this one. Is this season a bizarre situation where a lot of talented players are either old, tired, injured, or we've just got a real dearth of talent? Or is this a trend? Is next season going to be as bad as this season? I know people could sit and say, "Oh, it's not been a bad season." Like, no, I'm not saying Villa haven't had, a pretty good season. Obviously, Rodgers has done well, and I'm not saying that Bournemouth and Brighton, and Brentford haven't had solid seasons. Like Harry Wilson's had, a good season. I love Harry Wilson. I liked him when he was at Liverpool. Didn't really get an opportunity. You'd be like Harvey Elliott. The irony of all ironies is we buy Verts. Don't get me wrong. I'm not comparing Wilson and Elliott to Verts, but they're very similar players. They're all sort of similar model in terms of size and stature and speed. All got sort of silky left foots. Look, I'm not saying Wilson and Elliott have done anything close to what Verts has done because they haven't. But equally, I do believe that, and there is a weird another world where, Elliott, given the right opportunities and given the right position, could have been something close to a Verts. It's a shame for Elliott. I mean, he played amazing in the summer, won England in a tournament, never really let Liverpool down, never really had an opportunity. It wasn't his fault. We had Mane, Diaz, Salah, Jota, phenomenal players that that will go down in some of Liverpool's pantheons of all-time greats. He didn't really have a hope in hell of getting a chance up there. Yeah, if Harvey Elliott would have played for maybe any other club, maybe even like a Spurs. I mean, I love Harvey Elliott. He always puts his heart and soul, and I think if he'd have stayed at Liverpool this year, he would have got a lot of opportunities and could have shined. I'm all for bringing Elliott back rather than selling him. I think we probably will sell him because it's a way of raising funds. I think personally, you could do worse than bring Harvey Elliott back in to the Liverpool squad because if for whatever reason Verts isn't firing next year, you have somebody that plays a very similar style and that's already sort of established in the Premier League. Gives us an option B, frankly, and Liverpool don't have that many options. And without Ekateke next year, I think we should bring Harvey Elliott back. I think there's a world where keeping Jones and not cashing in, and keeping Elliott and not cashing in. And I know people will say like we've got to raise funds somehow. I was like, no, I get that, but I'm more inclined to sell McAllister as a way of raising funds for the defensive midfielder that we badly need. Then so that his sale would cover that position. We can easily spend 100 million net this summer. That's not any great shakes for the club. And then that mostly can be spent on the winger. And I think bring those two players back as well would help bolster this. Keep Jones and help bring Elliott back in. But yeah, let me know if you think whether it's a trend or just a one-off. The drop off in quality of the Premier League this season, because for me it's been absolutely vast, worst Premier League season ever. And people will say, "Well, you're saying that because you're a Liverpool fan." No, I mean I run through a vast proportion of the teams. Worst season in Liverpool's Premier League history. This one, right up there for Chelsea as well. Definitely there for Spurs. That's three of them. Man United have sacked their manager and had a horrific run until mid-January. They've hardly been that great since, but okay. Sure, Villa have had a good season. Rodgers had a good season. Not saying they haven't. Man City were pretty bang average until mid-January. Sure, Semenyo and Gay have helped them, and Cherky's been great since then. Haaland's picked up a little bit, but I think this is a B plus, maybe a B standard City compared to their normal standards. I don't think they're doing anything great to be where they're at now. I think Arsenal have imploded in the last 3 months. I don't think Arsenal were phenomenal before that. I think they were clinical like a surgeon, but hardly setting the world alight to be where they were at. And I don't think Liverpool did last year either. Before anyone screams at me, no, I don't think Liverpool were phenomenal last year when we won the league. We were functional and we were clinical. Weren't really where we weren't fabulous or exciting or, you know, no, we didn't win that many games, 4 and 5 nils, and sort of light up the Premier League. We just did what we did and then tailed off from sort of February onwards. Pretty much, basically the similar scenario to Arsenal, really. Maybe a bit more attacking and better than Arsenal because obviously Salah was on great form last season. But the difference is last season we sort of held on and didn't implode and had a bigger lead, and Arsenal have just imploded. But then we had Man City completely combust, for us last season. Had to buy half a team, didn't they, in January? Yeah, it is a. I'm starting to think it for me. I'm starting to think it's a trend. I'm just looking around at the depth and the players that are coming through, and for every Rio, Esteban, Rogers of the world, I just not. I don't think there's that many global superstars that are of the old level. That's I'm not saying that Mbappe. Look, Mbappe's a great player. I'm not saying he's not a great player. I'm just saying I'm looking at Yamal. That's probably that's about it. And so you're looking at since obviously Mbappe's come through ages ago now. Not he's still very young, but who's the next global sort of phenomenon superstar? You sort of stop at Yamal, don't you? Really? Maybe you could argue Lisi is the next sort of cap on the rank, but at least he's been going around a while. It's not a new one. I mean, maybe he's coming to the fore more because he's at Bayern Munich, and I suppose obviously Musiala's been out injured for 3/4 of the season for Bayern Munich, and Wirtz had a nightmare at Liverpool, and maybe you can make an argument that Musiala and Wirtz were meant to be the next two sort of global stars really to flourish, and one through injury and one through the sort of crisis Liverpool have had haven't really done that. Maybe that's the truth. On that side, and maybe we had a period when obviously you had Yamal and you had Jude Bellingham come through, and those different elements, and obviously Jude's sort of been stifled through injury in recent times. Because you look at Barcelona and you go, Yamal, absolutely, but then Rafinha, I don't mind Rafinha, but I don't think he's phenomenal. Everyone else he's like God. I don't even God knows what. I mean, fair play to him for still doing what he does. But Lewandowski was past his peak prime when it's Bayern Munich. Yeah, it's an interesting one when you look at the global state of football. So I put a video together, really sort of going from country to country in terms of where I feel football's at. Just to put a sort of a general couple of lines on it. Italy, no stars really of anything. Brazil, arguably one of the worst Brazils that I'd ever be at a World Cup. Argentina, they've got global talent in the Argentinian team. Obviously, the midfield, and you've got Messi, for them, and obviously you've got the winger that's Atletico that used to be at Man City. Sorry, the name eludes me. Apologies on that front. Argentina's still got sort of the stardust. I think Argentina are a very solid team in terms of you've got great midfielders, great defenders, great keeper, and the stardust factor up front. And obviously Spain have got the stardust factor up front. And sort of, really look at, it's not rocket science when you look at Argentina, France, Spain, it's really the three teams. But I don't. There is stars there. I just don't think there's that many global stars around anywhere anymore. There's just not. Maybe the Premier League went through an era where we had quite a lot, and we did. In fairness, obviously, Man City used to have quite a lot of them, and obviously a lot of them have aged out. Essentially, you obviously had David Silva. He went. Aguero. He went. Kevin De Bruyne. He went. Obviously, Bernardo Silva is aged out really as well. Gundogan, he went. It's really just sort of left with Haaland. Cherky's an up and coming star. He's got talent. I wouldn't say he's a global star at the moment. Yeah, Semenya's got the potential if he carries on. Who knows? I mean, I thought Foden, phenomenal year to help him to win the title. I just don't know what's happened to Phil Foden. All the talent in the world. There is players. There is players. Like I say that Michael Elise is the one that really stands out, I suppose. From this year, you are really, so I suppose the breakout star would probably be Michael Elise. I would say, but from my perspective, when I look at the global stage, I'm like, okay, time to really look out for Elise at the World Cup, isn't it? I mean, I suppose really when you look at the form of teams coming into, it'll be interesting to see who wins out of PSG versus Bayern Munich. Yeah, it really will because I love PSG's attacking style and I love their attacking flair. I've loved PSG's attacking flair, but I think PSG are probably more well-rounded. I think Bayern Munich are very gung-ho. Don't get me wrong, they can turn a 3-1. They can be 3-1 down and be 5-3 up in about 15 minutes. That some of what they do is nuts. It's wonderful nuts. Like as an impartial fan, hey, they're the most entertaining team in football, Bayern Munich, by a country mile. So yeah, we shall see, guys. Anyway, hope you have a great week. Hope you've enjoyed this special, really, for us to discuss the state of the Premier League. Is it a one-off this season? For me, the worst season this Premier League has ever been, for a whole multitude of reasons. And I'm starting to feel it's a bit of a trend. It may be a society element that's mixed into it, but I feel it's a bit of a trend. I'm not overly convinced when I look at the landscape of the teams that are underneath that next season's suddenly going to sort of light it up. Let's hope it does. Jesus, I'm a Liverpool fan. So for the love of God, we can't have it. I don't think we can have a season any worse than this season. This is, for me, it's been the worst we've ever had in the Premier League season. So I think there's plenty of room for certain teams can only get better. If Spurs stay in the league, Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, you expect Man City with this younger version of the team now to be much better next season. You'd think Arsenal would. I mean, Arsenal are what Arsenal are. They're built on sort of solid foundations, but are not built to set the Premier League alight. So I'm not sure what more you can expect from them, but I think there's a lot of potential with other teams. Can Newcastle get better? They're stuck in a cycle of being limited by their investment, and not because they don't have the money, but because of the whole FFP turnover factor. Until the turnover can get to a certain level, not because they haven't got the money they can put in, they're like Aston Villa. Those two clubs could spend vast amounts of money, but they can't because they're restricted by the turnover element. The owners could pump money in like Blackburn and Chelsea did and City did back in the day to get them up there, but they just can't do it because of where the rules are at nowadays. Which sort of, it does tie their hands to really what you have to wheel and deal like every single summer. They have to sell a star to then give them wiggle room to try and do other things or retain other stars. It's the reality, isn't it? They had to sell Elliot Anderson, old Newcastle, to just try and retain some of the talent and to help them try and do some other deals. Be interested to see whether Villa could kick on next season, maybe with it, if they're in the Champions League with the extra revenue that comes with that. Will that give Villa a chance to really reinvest that? That would be an intriguing one. Villa suddenly got a star like an Elliot Anderson or an Adam Morton or, some of the stars from a Brighton or Bournemouth that really enabled Villa to kick on. That would be quite intriguing, on that front, guys. So, yeah, hope you've enjoyed this. Enjoy the rest of your day. You take care. Bye-bye.